Welcome, everyone. We're back with you today because when we had CK's recent webinar on shock, awe, and AI, there were so many fantastic questions that we didn't get to all of them, even though we extended the session by about half an hour. So we're here to address those additional questions. And since the webinar, it was just a few days ago, but we have a
Yesterday.
we have a hot off the presses announcement, and we'll talk about that big Apple press release from yesterday. So, CK, welcome back, and thanks for being with us again. Thanks for taking extra time to do this. So,
Promise made, promises kept here at Rutgers. Yes, we deliver.
Excellent. Well, I'm going to start with the first of many questions, and here we go. How does the corporate world have the bandwidth to handle all of this cloud-based data?
Excellent. And not just the corporate world, educational world, nonprofit world, healthcare world, agricultural world. AI is going to help with that. AIs are our friends because while we humans speak in context, our computer friends, our robots, they speak in zeros and ones. So actually the computers are going to help offload all of that. They're going to crunch and munch through all of that. What we've had is such a scarcity with all of these technological tools. So more and more and more data is going to happen, but AI is going to come to the rescue with all of that. So we're going to be seeing AI is going to be so much friend, not foe when it comes to this. So the more data that we are going to create, the more in the cloud that we're going to create, the bandwidth that's going to be needed is a lot more AIs that are going to be creating a lot more AIs that are going to be taking care of a lot of that bandwidth needed. So it actually is creating the solution to that problem. So that's actually a really good thing and a really good question, and not just for the corporate world and not just for the nonprofit world or for educations, but even for any bitty nano businesses like myself, companies of one. And that is actually a big shot in the arm for a lot of us. Look at just the creator economy that's happening right now that's exploding. So that's going to help a lot of us too. So great question. Okay, I'm ready for question number. I'm ready for question number 2.
Okay, here we go.
Yep.
Won't ransomware rise commensurately to sabotage competing organizations or governments?
Oh, the techno optimist in me hates to say it, but absolutely positively, which is why I always say that we're going to need to create just more and more efforts that are going to thwart these badder efforts. Absolutely. And that's why you're seeing such a rise of cybersecurity programs and the like, and actually really spread the word. If anything and everything, a huge amount of opportunity for those that are already in the cyber field and that are looking to go into it. And I'm not just talking about 2-year, 4-year master degree and PhD programs. I'm talking starting fresh out of high school in under a year and starting out with like literally under a year learning pathways at 40, 50, and 60 degree salaries in cybersecurity is a terrific career pathway. So absolutely, positively, cyber is a way to go. While we will have more and more tools, we are going to need more and more people in cyber for ransomware, for anti-hacking, all sorts of tools and the like. But it is a tremendous growth area and a big yes, exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point to that question. Absolutely.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So
well, not fantastic that it's going to happen, but fantastic that we have a big growth area to that. So I'm agreeing with.
And And fantastic response.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you. So,
I know what you meant there. Yeah.
um, I hope that this makes sense because we're missing our audience to ask for any clarity, but
I know.
tragedy of the commons. If
Yes.
all get great ideas, then none do. Question mark?
Yeah. Understood. So it's kind of like when you have a lot of cooks in the kitchen, then who's the head chef? And when you have a lot of ideas and ideas are in there, then how do you know which great ideas rise to the top? So I totally understand the question, but it's kind of like what we've found with this amazing experiment, this great experiment called the internet and I'll really say the web, because we've had the internet since the mid 60s, right? But the commercialized part of it, the World Wide Web, since the mid 90s, which I've been, this old gal here has been, lucky enough to be a part of the ground floor of the mid 90s. And one thing we found is that while everyone can get their ideas in there through crowdsourcing, through social networks, heck, through algorithms on interest like TikTok versus social graphs like on Facebook, we found that really creative ideas, those are the ones that get the most likes and get shared the most, right? Those really do very much bubble up to the top. And, one idea that I really like, and Maxim I really like, is that one thing that never loses value when it's shared is an idea. But you find that the best ideas can truly bubble up to the top. Maybe it's a funny dog video, or maybe it's a truly breakthrough idea. We found that some of the minds that we would have never found elsewhere bubble up to the top to solve these amazing mathematical proofs because of crowdsourcing, right? We've found little voices get big platforms, but I understand that if everyone's allowed in, then how will you find those big ideas, yet somehow they are found? But because everyone is allowed to have that platform to begin with. So we found kind of just the opposite, because we at least have that inroad. I think one of the best ways I've ever heard it said is when I was able to speak to a group at Amazon Robotics, the robotics arm. And the CTO said, because I was talking about how, unfortunately, about 30 years into the World Wide Web being connected, right? We only have 51% of our world truly connected to the World Wide Web. We always take it for granted here in the developed world, right? But we should by about 2040 have 100% truly connected broadband. And he said, CK, by 2030, we should have another 1.5 billion connected. He said, when we get the next billion connected, what are the chances? What are the chances we find the next Einstein? And that really hit me. And it's never left me. And I was like, wow. And he's like, that's the kind of stuff that really keeps me going every day when I'm having a hard day. It's like, we'll probably find them, that needle in the haystack, all because we were able to connect them in the most remote of all places. So that's the
Wow.
kind of stuff where I know I was like, dang, I wish I'd said it, but it's like so beautiful when you think about that. So it can happen that all those crazy ideas come, but it's kind of like when you watch those crazy reality shows and you're like, another. And then you see that person come on stage and you're like, yeah. And then they belt out that gorgeous opera tune, and you would have otherwise never looked their way. And all of a sudden you just find yourself weeping because you're like, if we'd not given them a platform. So we'll find out. But what we found 25, 30 years in is that the best ideas can truly bubble up to the top because we've given a platform and an on-ramp to those voices. So we'll
Nice.
see. But it's a great question, and I get it. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, next one up.
Next is, how effective is AI regarding sentiment analysis?
Ooh, the answer is it's getting better, and I could really say this about everything. It is funny. I think the best way it's said is by Kevin Kelly, who is a true thought leader and a gentleman, and as humble a person. I've met him in person as ever there were one. Truly, I wish there were more thought leaders like this. Ego-less, if ever there was one. He says this is the way to think about AI. The more people that will use it, the better it gets. The better it gets, the more people will use it. It has gotten so much better in the last 36 months. AI, the gas that AI runs on is data. So the more data it can learn on, it can run on, it will just keep getting better. If AI is the engine it runs on, the gas is data. So it's getting better and better at sentiment. Where it's really tough for it is when you think about sentiment, whether it's a smile or a smirk, it could be we're happy, or it could be we're being sarcastic. Same thing with the way we write. Sometimes we're being funny, ha ha. Sometimes we're being, oh yeah, I'm having a really great day. I'm having a great day. Oh yeah, I'm having a really great day. Computers, I mean, we think that they're thinking, guys, they're simulating thinking. We think that they're emoting. They're simulating emotion. They're not Terminator. They're not iRobot. They're a robot. They're code. So that's where it gets difficult for them. What's really interesting is when they can follow biometrics. They did this about 7 or 8 years ago, when people would allow computers and AIs to be attached to like their heart rate or their perspiration, not inside of them, but while they're watching a movie. And then it could track their emotions when they breathed, or they were scared, or when they had like a heart stopping or pumping moment. That was easier. Where it gets difficult is like, is the person being sarcastic or happy? That's why you have to keep what's called humans in the loop. I know it's a wild way to say it, but for some reason we think, oh, set it and forget it with the computers. No, we need to correct it. We need to say, this is what it means when it seems to mean A. It doesn't always mean A. It can mean C, or it can mean B. So it's getting better because we're using it more, but there's a lot of training going on, because a computer is not a human. It doesn't think in context and stories. It thinks in ones and zeros, which you're going to read. Folks who are watching this, you're going to read a lot of articles on where they're getting things a lot right, but where they're getting things a lot wrong. Where they're getting things a lot wrong is because they're not humans. They don't think in goals and values and ethics. They think in ones and zeros and computational values. Where we're going wrong in humans is thinking they should think like us. Bad on us. Bad on us. We need to stay in the loop and be very much in the driver's seat with that. So that's on us to do. Yeah. So I hope that's a helpful answer. But the more that we use it, the better it will get. The better it gets, the more we'll use it. But we got to stay in the loop and stay in those jobs in the loop, because we're in charge. We're always in charge.
Nice. All right.
Yep.
Good.
Yeah.
Good answer.
Really,
Good
really
answer.
common sense. And I'm not always known for my common sense. I'm known for my dreams and my goals, but I'm having to be very commonsensical with this dang stuff, because not enough humans are being commonsensical right now. Yep.
There you go. All
I
right.
sound like my
So,
mama. Yeah. Go ahead.
I think sound like probably everybody's mom, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we have someone who's curious
Yes.
around regulations and standards on
Good.
work in AI. And in your presentation, you mentioned that what's needed is cross-border collaboration on
Yes.
regulations and standards. And our questioner would be interested to look more into this and would like recommendations around research or researchers to follow on this aspect.
Oh, good stuff. This is Francis, and I'm hoping to speak to Francis over the next couple of weeks. So when it comes to AI, one thing I am actually loving on the regulation space is there's a few things. One is that we're talking about the need for regulation, and we need the right amount of regulation in this space because, of course, we do. We need ethics. We need to look at biases. We need to look at diversity and inclusion. But we need to look at this as a planet. We need to look at this as global because it is the world wide web world. And it's going to be like, oh, this is for the American body, but if it crosses over into Europe and the UK, we can't do that. Folks, we need to come together to be able to work as a world governing body. It's going to be a much better and broader effort on that, or at least show the example. So we need to start doing that, at least starting that with our allies. So I don't have examples to point to. However, what we've seen just in the last 3 months and in the last 2 weeks are a lot of letters being signed, and the folks that are going in front of different governing bodies from different nations, whether they are the US, whether they're Canadian, whether they are from Britain. So we're starting to see them come to the fore and start to come together. Also, I believe I said it in our webinar, when there is a revenue line and there is a lot at stake here, these companies are not just saying, well, it's America who has revenues at stake. Well, it's Canada that has revenues at stake. Well, it is Europe or Asia. They all have a horse, in the race. So we need to come together to do this. So this will need to be a governing body of very many governing bodies that come together. Another thing I want to say is one thing that we've found through very well-intended legislation like GDPR that was brought to us through Europe to protect data rights and data privacy. And I was very pro on that because it was a very pro user privacy, was that when we looked at that, one thing that came out of that was an unintended consequence that stifled not regulation, but stifled growth by new players. So we need just the right regulation. We need regulation that protects people and protects bad consequences, but we need regulation that doesn't stifle growth through startups. And this is what I mean. GDPR, very good legislation. But what it needs from lawyers and legality, it's stifled growth for new startups because they couldn't afford that. So what we can do now is we can say, we need to make sure to have legal resources available so that big companies, small companies, and nano businesses and creator economies can still grow in this space. So we're learning from our mistakes.
Yeah, that's the
No,
example I was
I'm
thinking
sorry.
of
We're
too.
learning from our unintended consequences. Yeah,
Yes,
go
yeah.
ahead. Yeah,
Um,
it's a good example, right?
yeah, that was the exact example that I was thinking of too.
And I
Um,
learned that example because guess what? CK was watching TikTok. I don't even have a TikTok. You know why? I'm so busy not talking on TikTok, but learning on TikTok. That's when
yeah,
I don't speak. I shut my mouth and I learn
yeah.
because
That's
I'm
another
learning.
momism, right? You have two ears and one mouth. Use them in
I talk
proportion.
enough. I talk on this. I talk in person. I'm talking on other channels on that one. I am so busy. I mean, I love it. I love it. But I'm like, you know what? I might come out and do it, but right now I am adoring those creators and I am learning so much about so much that I'm like, on this one, I'm keeping quiet because it's terrific. And on other channels too, but I'm like, you know what? There is so much for me to learn from because my business model is 50% teach, 50% learn so I can stay ahead. And it was terrific being able to learn that good lesson from great legislation that was not here in the US that we adopted later than them, which I
Mhm.
think shame on us. But we adopted and we used that as a precedent. And we need to use it as it was an unintended consequence, and now we can use it to go forward. So perfect. So there you
Right.
go. Yeah.
Excellent.
All right.
Excellent.
Next up, darling. What do we got next?
Okay. Next, we have what are some challenges companies face when using
Yes.
AI in the recruitment and application review process, and how can we reduce AI bias in this review?
Oh, there's so many challenges. Okay, first and foremost, we need to no matter which process it is, we need to not just recruiting. We need to interject and inject AI in the process to A, streamline efforts, and B, automate redundant and repetitive like paperwork, and I hate to use the word mundane tasks because it makes little of it, but I want to put humans on as much human oriented work as possible, and that's what I mean by that. So I'm not belittling any of that, but like scheduling a meeting, I think we can all agree it literally takes up to 3 weeks of our time each year. I want to put humans on work that they are spending more time doing more important work that advances the agenda. But I want us to spend less time on the repetitive, mundane work, but I don't want us to outsource all work and just say, set it and forget it. Because what we're finding is that there are hidden biases in there. What we're finding is that we're overlooking potentially great candidates. What we're finding is by setting it and forgetting it, we shouldn't have done that because we are finding mistakes in that work. I just used Chat GPT 2 weeks ago, and 8 out of 10 times, it does some great findings for me. The other 2 times, it has terrible typos. I'm like, folks, you really have to watch this work. It is still learning. What did I say? The more you use it, the better it gets. The better it gets, the more you use it. But we're still new in this field. So we're not going to just say it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. We can just use it for every single process. We can trust the process and we're done. Nope. Nope. We have to keep people overseeing the process. So we're finding that there are a lot of biases because, well, we have done some bad things for hundreds of years just in this country that we have in our history that we have to overcome. And those biases are being reflected back to us through all of our language, through all in the World Wide Web. And we now have them reflected back to us in our AIs. And I really hate calling it AI bias because it's human bias. We need to make sure and be overseeing those processes. We need to make sure and correct those. Those could be in all of our systems. I can tell you, I have friends in screenwriting and they look at all of these scripts and they have noticed just the bias towards male roles. I'm not even just talking about scripts through different ethnicities, just male roles. And when they put humans in the process to literally go, I need to check and see what I can do better, it's amazing how they come out the other side and make a difference in 36 months to make it more equal. I can, on my own PowerPoints and my own images, now when I go for checking images for my own stuff, I say, I need to look for more images of different ethnicities, not just white, not just Black, Asian, Pacific, all Pacific Islander, all of this.
Wow.
And I can tell you the difference I have at the end of the year. And sometimes it's very difficult, but I've seen how the stock image companies are doing better and better and better. So little things like that. So the answer to this question is we need to use AI as much as possible so that humans can do more intrinsically human work, but not in the way of just saying, set it and forget it. we need to really look at and say this is a new area where we have AI as a tool, but it's not perfect yet. There's going to be a solid, oh gosh, 5 to 10 years. We have a lot of work to do. We have a great set of tools that can get us there in hyper speed, but hyper speed, folks, we still have a decade. We're going to get there fast. We can remediate fast, but it's not like we can get there in a week. So, and we need to remember that when we're doing it, it's not the computer's fault. And I want to give us a good example here. We have a writer's strike going on in Hollywood, and I am 1000% on the side of the writers. I love the writers because they're not just the writers, they're the ideas folks, right? And when you ask a lot of people, what is the problem? They're saying AI is the problem. Actually, AI is a big problem for them, but they're not fighting AI. Hear me out. Hear me out before you gasp, people. I promise you that AI is not sitting in the corner going, I want to count the money. AI is not the greedy one, folks. I promise you this. AI is not going, I want to take the writers. Nope. It's the humans that are the problem. It's the humans at the studios that are not being good to those writers. And actually, when we find the best chess players in the world, it's not the AIs. And it hasn't actually been the human chess players. It's been the human chess players who've employed a lot of the AIs to find just the right fit. But it's not going to be AIs that are going to replace the writers. I can tell you this right now. You might be able to find a little bit of a mid ground, but they're never going to be able to replace it. It's just not going to be the great ones there. But when they say it's the AIs that we're working against, don't blame AI, because trust me, what the studios are doing, the studios are saying, oh, I love the messaging they're using because they're taking the blame from me. AI is not counting the money. It's the greedy studio executive. And I want to make sure they hear that. Yeah. So they got to get a really good deal. And I'm on the side of the writers 100%, 1000%. Yeah. So little things like that, but it's a good question. And we need to really look at all these biases and these ethics, and we need to make sure and employ all of these tools in the right way. Don't take ourselves out of the loop, and make sure that it's going to take a little bit of time. Might take a year, might take 2 years, might take 3 years to get it just right. But we can't just set it and forget it. That's so important.
Before I heard your answer to that, and this question around interviews and application process, I would have said that the pendulum had swung too far. It went from too human with too many biases around ethnicity of the last name, a color of skin, a gender, and things like that, to AI taking all of that out. But then other biases came in. Maybe they're doing an interview, an AI interview is programmed that an answer should be received in a certain amount of time, and you're dealing with someone who maybe is overcoming a stutter, and they can't get the words out, fast enough, but they'd be very well qualified for the job. So I think your answer about saying kind of we're better together, and use the AI for the appropriate things, use the humans for the appropriate things, and that's where we're all at our best. So I love that.
Actually, I love the way you just said it. I do think I call it a human machine collaboration. And I tell folks, when you're driving a car, I love the idea of self-driving car. I like that it's very safe. It looks out with other car, all this good stuff. But you're driving a car along with GPS, right? GPS is helping you route the car, right? And you're driving the car, right? When you are figuring out a budget, you're figuring out the budget, what all is needed in the budget, whether it's a personal budget, whether it's a budget for your work, you're using Excel spreadsheet, right? But you're doing that. So it's the same idea. It's a tool, but you're not handing everything over. And it's really fascinating to me just how much we do this. And I'm like, this is someone you're going to employ for your organization. This is a cultural piece of the organization. I mean, this is huge. This is your organization. I mean, yeah, you're going to have your technology and all of that. But some of the best organizations will tell you our biggest asset of our organization isn't the servers and the data farms. They're the people that go home every night. They're the people that we employ. We will, to your good wording, the pendulum will swing too far. I've been around this block for 3 decades. They'll swing the pendulum too far and go, oops, we did this in social media, Margaret. All of a sudden, they hired all these social media interns, right? Which I say it that way because why would you not pay your social media intern? And then all of a sudden they were like, CK, oh my God, my intern tweeted the worst thing and the entire company has, pardon me, the entire world has seen it. And I went, OMG, how could that ever have gone wrong when you didn't even pay a 19-year-old? And of course, Burger King, Oreo, who knows what, fill in the name here. They didn't know, right? Every time the pendulum swings too far and then we bring it back. Again,
Yeah.
common sense. I always say I never get to be smart. I'm too busy telling everyone common sense all the time. I just wish, but it's my own fault. I went into technology. I did it myself. I have myself to blame. But yeah, we're going to see it right now. There was a Wall Street Journal article saying, companies know that Chat GPT is not perfect yet. Poor OpenAI is like, we're not perfect yet. We're doing these things. We're in beta still, right? Bless their hearts. And they're like, we don't care. We know we can save the money. And I'm thinking, you should care. You're a Fortune 500 company. You don't want to just save a buck and blow it, but their own peril. And
Yeah.
they'll learn.
Truth. Truth.
We're gonna, you know what? Darn them. And it's their own fault. And to all of y'all watching this, you're going to make a lot of money because you're going to be correcting their mistakes. And you're not going to be doing smart stuff. You're just going to be going, well, I'm just going to be sending out invoices, correcting them for silly things. So it's going to be common sense.
Yeah. Common sense is often the answer. All right. So your next question, I hope you're familiar with this.
All right, let's go.
I use Bard, but
Yeah,
but they describe it as pretty lame on simple math. And they said
Bard is Google's Chat GPT, everyone.
Oh,
so
gotcha.
Talk about
Okay.
large language models or LLM, which are very, very, very large. They're parts of the internet. Bard is to Google what Chat GPT is to OpenAI, is the name of the organization that runs Chat GPT. That's what.
But basically, they gave several examples of different errors, but I think you've kind of answered this in a way, which is work in progress,
Yeah. So Chat GPT, talk about, I live in SoCal now, but I'm a New Yorker, 25-year New Yorker. Chat GPT told me I could get New Jersey Transit at Grand Central. And I was like, well, I have been here for 4 years. OMG, maybe a lot has changed. So I'm like, I'm asking and they're like, no, it hasn't. And I was like, oh my God. Because I was like, well, it did cut off from the internet in 2021. And of course, I'm like screaming, to my partner here. And he's like, why are you asking me? I drive a car. I live in Southern California. I don't even know what New Jersey Transit really. I'm like, oh my goodness. For those who are watching this that live in the tri-state area and you'll understand what a big thing this is.
Yeah.
So they can be wrong. And that's the whole thing. Just like humans, they can be fallible and there will be mistakes, which is why you keep humans in the loop, because that's a mistake that, as much as I'm acting like it's the end of the world and any New Yorker would, that's not, the end of the world.
Yeah.
But,
But
a
when things,
computer should not be wrong on math. I do
yeah,
agree with this person who asked this question.
yeah,
A computer should not be wrong on math. They speak
yeah,
in ones and zeros. That's their
yeah.
language. I agree. Yeah.
But when
But
you,
they are in beta. Yeah.
when something sounds too good to be true, when something doesn't seem right, don't rely on that one source. Check somewhere else.
Very good point here. A lawyer was going in front of a judge this past month, maybe even the past couple of weeks. And he quoted several precedents, as lawyers do, because they will quote case law. And the judge was like, I have never heard of these cases, so you will need to provide backup, as the judge should do. And he's like, sure. So he's providing the transcript from Chat GPT. And so the judge is like, you need to provide something else than this. And he can't. Should have checked the work. It's called fact checking. See, again, pendulum swinging too far, And so, I mean, before you go in front of a judge, don't just be like, AI, of course it's perfect, right? So, like, everyone hearing this is going, maybe I need to create a business out of this. Like, there's already businesses on checking to make sure a deep fake is a deep fake. See, all this stuff popping up, folks, of all those things, displacement, and all of these jobs that are going to go away. For every job the internet took away, it created two. You just need to reskill in these things. Listen to CK when she says AI can be your moment. Okay, so the judge was like, check your work, even if the work is an AI, right? So now we're finding out that these things can be fallible. Now there are even articles that are saying that these AIs are daydreaming or they're making stuff up, to which I say, stop using the words make stuff up. Make stuff up implies intent. Intent is a word that has a meaning of, it has malice. Malice means an emotion, or what is the word I'm looking for here, Margaret? Intent, or negative or positive. Remember, these things don't think, they simulate thinking, right? They don't really think. They have a reasoning ability, they have an analytical ability, but they're never really thinking. They're simulating thinking, right? They are intelligence, which means the ability to acquire and apply skills decoupled from consciousness, right? So they're usually good at one or two tasks, like these large language models are, okay? They don't have general intelligence yet. And even there, it's not really sentience or consciousness, nowhere near that kind of stuff yet. And maybe likely never will be like a consciousness or a sentience. But this making stuff up, they're reasoning to the best of their darn ability. So they're not really making stuff up. So this whole daydreaming idea, they're just reasoning with what they got. Okay. So this whole intent is not the greatest wording, I think, for this. We're kind of giving them too much credit. But the poor lawyer, he's
well,
really well known now.
yeah.
But there's going to be a lot of those stories out there. So going back to whether it's hiring practices, whether it's going in front of a judge, anything, we got to remember where we're at. And even 100 years into artificial intelligence, we're still at the beginning. We've made leaps and bounds. It's wonderful, but we're still at the very beginning. They can generate great images, but there's still a big joke. The beautiful images they're creating, as far as they've come, they still have a really hard time creating hands. They don't really create all new. They're just doing the best they can off of the images we've fed into them, which goes back to ideas. So this is an idea. They can give you new recipes from ingredients you've given them. But all new art or all new, that's still very much in the context of humans. Take heart, humans. You've still got a lot going for you.
Yeah,
Stop,
get up off
stop
the
with the
couch.
whole
You've got things
esteem.
to do.
Jesus, stop, stop with the self-esteem and all that. Okay. The psychologist, you're going to do really well. Psychologists are going to make bank in this time. Oh my God. All right, let's keep going.
All right. So we have someone who asked, I guess this would be considered kind of the 30,000-foot of view question. What's the right way to use AI and what are the best things to use it for?
Oh, so many great things. So as a decision support tool, so for example, I'm a doctor or a physician support uh physician, it's called physician support. I forget what it's called, but there's doctors and then there's it's called physician. I forget what it's called, but it's like doctor and then there's another and then there's nurse. But anyhow, so I'm a caregiver, and a lot of times the doctor will want to look at different types of illnesses, and they may come across or be stumped, or they may want to check on what their patient may or may not have. And AI is a great tool to use. We all have biases, and it's not intentional. I have biases, and it's not intentional. It's just I have come across so many ways to do something, or I favor certain ways to do something, or I've come across it in my field that I lean towards certain things. It would be really helpful to continue to be pushed to open my mind. I'm always better for it when I open my mind. As a doctor, it's always helpful, heck, to avoid malpractice. It's always helpful to have that decision support tool and that little buddy on your shoulder saying, but it could be this. So that can be very helpful in your practice, not just for doctors, for engineers, for anything. I know for me, it sure would open me up. Um, Dare I hate to say this because everyone laughs at it, and I say funny for you, but not the convict. We have found that between the hours of 11 a.m. and 1 p.m., judges, I'm sorry to bring this up, judges, have handed down more guilty verdicts than in any other hours in their workday. And it was found very odd for many years. And then we found out those were the hours before lunch.
Hangry.
They
The
were hangry.
judges got hangry.
Stop laughing. Stop it. You stop it right now. Take that smile. And I thought, it's so terrible. That's so terrible. So sometimes I think it would be very helpful if maybe, you know what? I saw a speaker one time. She said, data keeps us sober. And I will say that there is a wonderful maxim in writing called kill your darlings, right? I will say it now. I get really attached to my ideas. And I have found that I put my ideas in a file and I say, I'll come back. I'm coming back for you, baby. I'm coming back for you. You know, that cute little song from TikTok. I'm coming back. I will come back for you. I will come back for you. You will find a home, but it's hard. It's hard. It's hard. If you ask my partner, he would say we would probably have bigger savings if I would leave the pretty things and come back for them at the store later on instead of bringing them home. But I would say this. I would definitely say this. Maybe if data keeps that speaker in her organization sober to say, we shouldn't go with that idea. Maybe AI could help us be better and keep us more objective, because AI does not have a favorite. So
Yeah.
that may be the best one. Maybe it could be great for couples counseling and saying, you know what? Maybe we shouldn't look at things in black and white, but shades of gray. So in those ways, a decision support tool,
Yeah.
keeping us more rational because it's looking at things like that. For data analytics, oh my gracious, for repetitive work. One of the best examples that I give is a study they used in Colorado with social workers, where they found that paperwork was so sky high that these wonderful folks that spent so much time getting their master's degree, and they were only able to use less than 30% of their time interfacing with the children that they wanted to interface with, because the paperwork that is necessary to go ahead and track those kids that they're putting in foster homes so they can place with the right family, so they can make sure and record the notes. AIs are really good at recording notes, at transcribing all of that, all so we can interface to make sure for those welfare check, all of that stuff. So that's a good. My doctor alone, I bet he wants to spend less time looking down at notes and more time looking up at me and all of that. So there's a lot to use it for. The
Right.
best, it's endless. We'd need more of these back and forth to go through. So there's a lot of uses. At
Yeah.
the end of the day, I want us to use it so that we can do more work to be more human. The biggest thing that I'm working on right now with all my trainings, with all my speeches, has a lot less to do with the rise of the robots and a heck of a lot more with human machine collaboration, the human renaissance, the age of ideas, not artificial intelligence. While everyone's looking over here at AI, shiny objects, I'm looking over here and saying, guess what? This is the biggest shot in the arm to be human. You can look at the robots. They're great. They don't care about you. They don't want to kill you. They don't want to hurt you. They don't care about your job. They don't want to enslave you. They don't know to care about you. I want to talk about the humans. Finally, I can talk about the humans.
Mhm. Well, a disclaimer, I just think it's a funny thought to call a judge hangry. I don't think it's funny at all, the consequences of
I know.
of that. Just the
I know.
disclaimer. No,
I know.
no.
You're a lovey, and you are so fun. I'm gonna start a she said talk show with you.
All right. So next question is, um, how do humans know what is correct? Humans report truth
No.
from their perspective of the time.
My biggest concern, misinformation, disinformation. And I think I learned a third one, and I had it in my piece, which is, oh gracious. There is what is the three types of knowledge: what you know, what you don't know, and what you don't know that you don't know. I think there's a fourth: what you think you know, which is all the misinformation. I'm like, oh my God. This is my biggest concern, is misinformation. I'm so I'm so concerned. I'm so frightened. I'm so angry about it. And it's not just in the developed world, it's in the developing world. And actually one of the best economists said that we should actually not even use that terminology, because the developed world should always be called developing, because you're never done. which is true because you want to keep reinventing, but that's another
Mm.
discussion. It's a great point. Because one thing, like with misinformation, one of the things that makes me the angriest with, all the Cambridge Analytica and all that, and all the terrible things that Facebook has done is with the algorithm, the images alone. What people don't understand about the developing worlds is the high rates of illiteracy. The images alone have resulted in people being killed because they believe it. And so it's just like, people just don't understand. So the misinformation is so concerning to me. And that's where I get worried about the AIs. And everyone's going to blame that on AI. Again, it's not the AIs. Stop blaming the algorithm. The algorithm has no intent. It does not understand. And we've taken humans out of the loop. And then the AIs just think, oh, I'm supposed to do this because I'm computationally coded this way. So I must be meant to continue to perpetuate this. So this is where I get really worried. However, this is where we go back to cybersecurity. And this is where our social networks are listening. Elon, no. This is where our networks, where we really have ethically, I believe, legally, criminally, have such an absolute mandate, and we just absolutely have an objective, have such an honor to do right by this with this information. So this is a growing field, and this is where I think we need to be number one on, because this is where it can crush us. So this is when we say, how would humans know it's correct? We need to have some kind of, not just regulation, but I think it's going to be along like a good housekeeping kind of seal. That may be not the right way to say it, but that just comes to mind. But I just think that it's going to have to be along the lines of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that whether it's through a blockchain, something that is very trustworthy there.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think that's going to be so important. Now, granted, some things are subjective, but the truth, and people will be like, well, the truth is subjective. I'm not saying things of opinion, this is the greatest stress, but I mean, I think that's going to have to be secure and important, because we have a huge election coming up. But we also have things that, because these systems can perpetuate things so fast, and we do have a lot of great systems that can work for this. We have blockchains, we have biometrics, we have ways to do this, but that is probably my number one is misinformation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And it is in corporations' best interest to thwart this, to come together. And we have the money and the manpower, and this, I should say, human power to do this. And we have the systems to do this. So when we say, how do humans know this is correct? We are going to need to globally create a system to do this. And the technology does exist. The technologies do exist, and they're going to have to be open source in order to do this. And it can be fascinating to do this. We have sequenced the human genome. We can do this. Yeah. And it would be a fascinating global effort to do this. We need to do this. It is high time to do this. And this is definitely in my number 3, if not my number 1. We need to do this. Yeah. And it's time.
Wow.
Yeah. What's your
Wow.
number? Well, I'd be interested. What's your number 1? Humans report truth and perspective all the time. But yes, they do. They do. But there are some things that are absolute truth that, yeah. And it's just, this is something that we absolutely, need to do. Like,
Huh.
yes. Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So I know we're going to talk a little bit about Apple and their big announcement before we
Yes.
go, but the last question that I had for you is from someone who owns a company and wants to get their team up to speed with AI,
Yes.
and they're wondering what types of places do you recommend for helping people learn?
There are several types of places that you can go. And this is just going to get faster and more furious just over the next 6 months. One, I'm going to talk Rutgers because I love Rutgers, whether that is in person or online, and it can be through gracious, or we can do it through Rutgers Business School Executive Education. You can do that through a 1 week, a 3 month, and on site. You can do it through all sorts of ways because, well, we've been doing this for over a decade, which is fabulous. So there are absolute ways to do that. And the person that you would contact is my gal here, Margaret, as well as Christina. So you would go through them. But that's one way. A second way is online. There's all types of resources. LinkedIn has resources. Khan Academy, Udemy. I'd start with LinkedIn. I'd go there. YouTube, you can get some classes there. There are also consultants like myself who will do trainings on site for a day. They'll also do webinars. Conferences can be interesting as well. There are virtual conferences, remote. There are also conferences that you can go to. I actually suggest you do a few things. You do like try a training, try a conference, and try some webinars. Try a little bit of each. But the biggest thing that I suggest you do is commit to a series of learnings throughout the year, because all that's going to happen is that things are just going to continue to get faster. Sorry, but not sorry. We live in a time of the exponential where we're about to go through an Apple announcement where it's just going to explode again next year and get faster. So my big thing right now is I'm suggesting to companies that at least once every 2 weeks, you figure out a time where your employees are taking at least half a day, if not a full day. Yep. Once every 2 weeks, as part of their work, they get one full day where they get to learn, whether it's offsite, on-site, or both, so they can stay up to speed. Because an employee or a contract worker that is staying up to speed is extremely valuable to your company, and you want to make sure they stay that way. Some companies are saying that makes sense. Some companies are saying, I'll meet you halfway and we can do it once a month. I'm kind of liking that they're negotiating with me as though I'm the boss, so I'm just sticking to it. But you know what? I'm right. When I started my interview process way back when I was early 20s, my first interviews, I would ask my bosses to be, so what type of programs do you have for ongoing learning? To which they would reply, Missy, you just got, because they would say those things. It
Mm,
was so politically incorrect,
mm,
but that's the way it would go. And they would say, you just got done learning for 21 years. It's now time for you to start doing. Oh my God, I wish I had a video camera. It was so politically incorrect, but I get where they were going, and which the confidence of youth, I went, why would I stop now? That was what I was right. But like, that's what I said. And they went, you're going to be a firecracker.
all
But the thing is that that's how I thought. And I was so excited that my third job allowed me a budget of $2,000 a year to go and learn. I thought, I was so excited. I know, isn't that
Yeah.
crazy? But that's what I thought, because I just didn't understand why I would stop, but I got it. But So I am at least happy to see that companies are saying, okay, once a month, one day. But I'm telling you, that's the way we're going to have to start doing it. So commit to yourself and your employees to try different things. And the biggest thing right now, figure out pockets of time. For example, when you do go to the office, every day on the way there, sure, listen to your playlist, get in your Zen mind frame, all that mindset. But on the way back, listen to an ebook at the car. When you're in the gym, I listen to my ebooks and I'm like doing my thing. It's really easy to watch Netflix and chill. I get it. But sometimes watch a documentary on AI. Figure out pockets of time where you could be learning. I'm telling you, there is a way to figure out a way to get that learning into your life, whether it's webinars, whether it's on site, whether it's a conference, because right now it will mean the difference between thousands and thousands of dollars of difference and keeping yourself relevant, whether you are in your 20s, 30s, 40s, or like me, mid 50s, who is reinventing once again at this time. And once again, just getting started and excited about it on a new technology.
Yeah, here at Rutgers Business School, we talk about how things are evolving so fast that we're preparing people for careers that don't exist yet and really focus on lifelong learning and the commitment, just like you said, to taking things in over time. You may leave, graduate, complete a certificate, but you're not done. You have to keep learning.
So this is my mantra. My mantra, it's on my wall back here. Invent, can't see it because it's blurred out. It says invent, reinvent, repeat.
Love it.
And it's like, I got to do it again. You know what? It's like a muscle. You just keep going. And you know what? Keep learning the new, never get old. Keep learning
Yeah.
that. And I tell you, they have done these studies. I mean, my partner's mother, she let's just say she's going into her 8th decade of life. This woman is a powerhouse. I'm like, seriously. And she's just, and the doctor's like, she's a spitfire, she just doesn't stop. And she's like, why would I stop now? It is a different way of life, and it's just the way it goes, and she loves it,
Yeah.
and she loves what she does. So there you go. All right, how many more we got?
We're done with the questions that have been unanswered since you completed the previous webinar, but I do know that were very excited about the announcement that came out
oh yes,
about Apple. And I know you want
Apple.
to share a little bit about how that impacts what you were talking about just, days ago.
So, actually, Apple had its major event yesterday, June 5th. So it's an annual event, and everyone was wondering, is it finally going to come out with a headset? Is it finally going to come out with its virtual reality or mixed reality or its augmented reality device? And just so everyone knows, the difference between those 3 terms, augmented reality device is like with Pokemon, it's 2D layer in front of you, like when we're hunting, Pokemon. Virtual reality, you're totally cut off from the world. And mixed reality is when you have images that you can interact with. And it did come out with a device. It's called the Vision Pro. They call it spatial computing, which is interesting. A whopping $3,500 price tag. It was rumored if it would be 2,000 or 3,000. Well, it was 3,499. I call it 3,500. We all know it's going to be at least 4,000 with taxes and all the fixins, if not more than that. It's a beautiful device. It has a dial. It can be augmented reality. It can go to virtual reality. So it's both. It's also a 3D recording camera as well. It has a battery pack that you can put into your pocket. You can display cameras all around it. When this video goes out, Margaret is going to include a link. It's like a 10-minute video. It's a sales pitch, but it's beautiful. So you can watch what all it does. So it's not just the goggles. You can make the screen in front of you, your TV, you can make it as big as an IMAX theater. There's a lot to it. It's not just goggles. So I am not a salesperson. I do not own Apple stock. I make nothing off it. I'm not an affiliate for it. So it's an expensive piece. I'm just telling you what you get for it. Yes, I will probably buy it. Yes, I will go into more debt for these things because I will need to know about it. I've been teaching in immersive, spatial, the realities, extended reality, whatever we want to call it at the time. It's a little different, a lot different from the metaverse in that this is more about spatial computing and how it's different from, say, portable or wearable devices. It's a little bit of an evolution there. It's going to be very lightweight, likely. It's not out till probably January, February of next year. How will it do? We'll see. It's going to probably do very well in corporate America. I can see it doing very well in different fields. TBD. We'll see how that does. Will it come down in price? Probably a bit as it goes along. I'm not sure. That we'll see. It's gotten reviews that it's amazing. It's amazing, an astonishing price point. I do see computing evolving. I do see how helpful it could be for like Zoom calls and the like. This isn't a tiring device like virtual reality that cuts you off from the world. I see how easy it could be for gaming and such until I actually get to interface with this device, literally interface. Oh, I made a cute little pun. Didn't even mean to. I won't be able to give really good feedback. It is interesting. It's called the Vision Pro and not Eyesight. Get it? Eyesight. But then again, I thought Apple Watch would have been cute for eye time, but it's the first thing that doesn't have Apple in it or I in it. So I thought that was an interesting move for what it's worth. It is a completely closed system, just like Apple is with all its others. It's not Web3 at all. There's no open source, so it's keeping you in that. It interfaces with all the other devices. You can have all these screens open to you as big as you want. So for a remote device, there's a lot to love about that. So I could see that going a lot of places. So you wouldn't have to have a designated office, folks. You could literally have a small studio apartment and you could make your office huge in front of you. So that could be very interesting. So the big thing here is AI could be a big boost to this, because it can have it interface with a lot of other devices. So I think it can be interesting. The price tag, though, is huge. Will it let you finance? I'm sure, just like a car, because for $3,500, you can get a used car for that. It'll let you finance. So you can just own your life to Apple and several other your lives to Apple for quite a while, but we'll see. We will see. I do think it's interesting that Apple continues to go from portable laptops, portable smartphones to wearable. This is actually wearable, to spatial devices. So that's interesting. I think it's interesting at the same time that Meta, formerly Facebook, now has the Meta Quest and now the Meta Quest 3, which is also an AR and VR device, which is $500. And we'll see things from Samsung and the like. So that's going to be interesting for next year. So we are going. Some people are like, people will never wear devices on their face. The word never. I have learned by using the word never to not use the word
To
never,
never use the word never.
especially in a time with the internet, folks. So we'll see. We'll see. I'm fascinated to see where all this goes. I for holography and the like, I'm sick of going to a museum and having to jockey for a position to look for a little placard to see what the exhibit is about, or have to toggle on my smartphone. I would like to wear, and I don't want contact lens on my eyes. I don't want something on my eyeball, to have something small that I can put on my eyes and have a display that I can take off. I want to stop looking down at things and holding and tripping and falling. Okay, folks, I want to. I also don't want to be shut off from the world, but I will say this. When I put my Meta Quest on and I have loaded up the space station simulation and seen those folks on the moon and on satellites, that breath that went, I have, that was one of the most exhilarating computing experiences, if not the most, I have ever experienced. It was phenomenal. So I can say that. And then being able to go to Tanzania, see what I said, go into parts of Africa and go, oh, honey, we are definitely going here next year for our trip. And then to look at it is completely different than looking at a computing device. You are immersed.
Yeah.
So I can tell you that. I can tell you that right now. So that is an evolution. And so that's exciting. Now, I know we've gone quite a bit. For those who have stayed and listened to us, I appreciate it. I hope we've given you value. One thing I have found about technology is that there are a lot of questions and the answers are never simple. And that's just the way it is. But I so appreciate so much the questions, and I appreciate you staying with us. And Margaret, I really appreciate you taking extra time. The folks need to know we care about them because we do this. Yeah.
And it is a joy to work with you. So
That's what we do. We
how
love
much
it.
fun we always have. And yeah, so
Yeah, we do it for, honestly, we do it for love of the game. We love what we do. Yeah.
truth there. Yes. So CK, thank you. And to our audience who's been with us for the long haul of this discussion,
Yeah.
believe it or not, it's only the beginning. There'll be more to follow. We're already scheduling CK for a future webinar to give an update on what's new in a few months. So
Yeah. In November, we're going to do a look ahead to what we should be on our radar for 2024.
Yeah. Well,
Yep.
looking forward to that already, and look forward to seeing you teaching in the mini MBA program even sooner than that.
Yeah.
So thank you, CK, and thanks to our audience. Bye, everyone.